We're gonna start. Um, Hello, everyone. My name is Annie Mock. I am a cartoonist. I have been for, I don't know, 20 something years of my 34-year-old life, or probably longer. I am teaching a class on this book, Story, which is coming up. I will put it in the chat window in case anybody wants to check it out. It is a class based around this book's story about screenwriting and how it can be used for comics. Yes, Donna, I saw your note about how you didn't like the book, which is going to be interesting talking about it once we start. Thank you so much for signing up already. But anyway, let's get started here. Let's see, how do I share screen? Where is the share screen? Where is the share screen? Hello, Tom. Thank you. Green arrow icon center bottom of the screen. Ah, the one that says share screen. That would make so much sense. So we're going to start out by looking at what is typography, understanding basic typography. So some of the basic things that you want to know about are X heights, which is the top of the letter here, the lowercase letters, and Y height or cap, which is the top of a uppercase letter, and Y height, which is the area in between here. And let's see here. Weight. Now, weight refers to how you're going to optimize the like the heaviness or the boldness of the typography. And you can do that with, maybe I should get started by showing some of my work, actually. Stop share, screen share, solve lettering talk. Stop share. Ah, okay, great. So this is a cover of Fetish Bones by Kamea Away, who is otherwise known as War Mother. She is a rapper and musician. And oh, if somebody has their audio on, I'm hearing an echo. So if you can mute your audio while you're not talking, I would appreciate that. Thank you. So Kamei handed me a book of collages that she had made, and I took this design of hers in the background and lettered over it. Let's see here, what else? This is designed for my friend's band Pedal. This is the title page of a comic called Rattata Story, which was a Pokemon comic, Pokemon fan comic about owning pet rats. This is the ad for the talk. And as you can see, I use a mix of hand lettering and digital lettering. And The digital lettering typeface that I tend to use is by, let's see, Marian Churchland. I believe it's a Comic Craft typeface. And we'll talk a little bit about using digital typefaces in a little bit. Here's some artwork from my old band, See Through Girls.
Last I heard of him in the 90s, he was making a sailboat that was.
What's that? Sorry, what did somebody say?
Sorry, that was my mic. Hi there.
Hello. No
Hello
worries.
there.
Did you have a question or comment?
No, not yet. I'm just joining.
Oh, no worries. No worries. Okay, no problem. And here is a shirt that I designed for a trans podcast. This is some use of digital typography here with the Marian Churchland typography, and here is some hand lettering. Here's some more use of mix of digital typography and hand lettering for this graphic memoir that I drew that my friend wrote. And here is Valentine's Day cover band show where I did part of it in pencil and part of it digitally. In pencil here and digitally all over. And this is from the cover of Wet Moon, which is a comic book graphic novel series by Sophie Campbell, and I did the redesigns from Oni Press. And something that I did for the back covers was I took one of my favorite typefaces, Bell Gothic, which is a skinny kind of bold typeface, and I traced over it. So that's a good way to learn about typography and hand lettering, and to get a really consistent group of text with more character in it. And that's all for that. Now let's see. So as we can see here, typography is the style and appearance of text. And you can see here that in this cereal ad, there's like the thunder chunks. And serif fonts have serifs attached to the letters. This is something you're not going to be too worried about, except, well, I mean, I won't say you won't be too worried about it because I don't know how you'll be lettering, but it's something I worry about mostly for titles, because when you're hand lettering, sans serif fonts are much, much easier. And all caps is going to be the easiest because of the way that the letters interact with the space, especially if you're hand lettering. Now you can see a variety of approaches here. Casual, neutral, as if any typeface is neutral, because every typeface says something. You know, it's communicating through the way it looks, and through the way it reads. Classically, serif fonts are used for large blocks of text, like in a prose book, and sans serif fonts are used for titles. But in comic books, we're probably going to want to use a sans serif font and probably in all caps, generally. Let's see here. Let's see. Font selection. one way that you can learn about different typography, different ways of lettering is just to copy and trace over your favorite typefaces. So as I said earlier, I traced over Bell Gothic Standard for the back of the Wet Moon books. And tracking and kerning, that is very important. So you see how the letters are spaced without too much in between and without too little in between. Or if you're looking for an airier way of doing things, you can have the letters kerned so they're spread out more. Let's see here. Let's get into some hand lettering. Stop share. Does anybody have any questions so far?
Nope.
Okay. Clip Studio.
I'll ask a question. Can I ask a quick question?
Of course, of course.
So if you trace over a font and whenever you do that, you kind of make it a little bit your own, I would think most of the time. So at that point, I mean, it's your own font. You're not like plagiarizing someone else's font. I mean, I'm just curious about that.
That's a great question. I would say there are not copyright issues in that regard, because if you're, I am not totally sure actually about the legality of it. But I have never been bothered by tracing over other typefaces, and it tends to look different enough just by virtue of your own handwriting and your own lettering and drawing skills, that I think it wouldn't matter. But I am not 100% sure.
I actually think there are fonts that are copyrighted and there are fonts that are not.
Yeah, I mean, definitely using. Oh, okay. Looks like
font. I believe it's the font file, and it has to do with the Digital Millennium Copyright Act, and it's the font file itself that has these really strict rules about it.
Yeah.
Especially old-fashioned or traditional lettering shapes are, in the public domain, but the font files themselves. So if you're redrawing it, you're not having that issue with the, software of the font.
Yeah. As far as I understand, as long as you bought a typeface legally, you're allowed to use it in any venue you want. And comiccraft.com is a great faster way that is using digital. I will show you a faster way right now. So I tend to letter at 11-point font and in CC Marion Churchland Journal, which is a font I bought off of comiccraft.com. And if you're looking for inspiration as to different hand lettering styles, that site has great fonts based off of different cartoonists' work. So you can get a Joe Kubert font, for example, or an Adam Kubert font. So let's see here. So I am teaching you about hand lettering. I am teaching you about hand lettering. Now, oops. So you can see what I mean here about the ease of using digital typefaces and the helpfulness of using all caps, because it makes a solid block of text as opposed to where you're dipping up and dipping down with upper and lowercase text. And when you're doing, oops, what are you doing here? Aha. Textured pen, pencil 6B.
Let's see something.
Let's see, what is a good pencil? Real pencil 4H. Okay, there we go. And a good way to add a little character to using digital typography is to freehand, say, a text box. And then you get a little bit of the wobbliness. You can, of course, I forgot how to draw straight lines. Anyway, and when you're doing word balloons, you want to have, generally, it come in from the center, the tail of the balloon. That way, whoops, that doesn't look very good. That way it's kind of held in a position. Let's try that again.
You know what?
Ooh. Whoops. And here you can see the tail comes in from the center, and you've got a balloon and a bit of hand lettering that looks fairly natural, although I use the digital typeface. Now, when you're hand lettering completely, you want to use guidelines when you're first getting started, probably. So here is an example of some lettering guidelines where we've got the cap height and the X height and the base. And let's see. Now let's do a little something more fun. That's using a textured pen at a very large weight, so that you get the, by the way, I'm using Clip Studio, and I'm using brushes by Ray Friendon. And I highly, highly recommend his brushes, which are, I think, maybe $15 for hundreds and hundreds of brushes, which are wonderful. Now you can see here, if I make this gray, same principles apply whether I'm lettering a title or an effect like this. Unless, of course, you want to break that effect and break the rules to make something a little more whimsical. And here, of course, you've got the same thing going on, except it's curvy. And of course, you can do my favorite, which is cursive. Now, unless you're going for a really strict kind of cursive in your hand lettering, I think it's great to mix up traditional cursive with more standard letters, more standard, I don't know how you would call it, but say in cursive, this would be how you would write George, but that's kind of, you know, a little bit harder to read immediately than if you were to write, and you can separate out the letters. You see this sometimes with Craig Thompson's hand lettering, the way that he'll take the letters and take cursive letters and separate them out. Let's make this bigger. Yeah, that's much better. Now, when you're doing cursive, you want to pay attention to the line weight, because that's going to help the reader. I didn't do necessarily a great job of it here, but say you're making an E. That helps the reader kind of grasp onto the shape of the letter a little better than if you were just doing a dead weight, as if here. Let's see. Does anybody have any questions so far? No? Okay. Oops. Let's see here. Let's letter a block of text. So I, and when you're writing the letter I in to mean I, you know, me, myself, you're generally going to use serifs, and that helps to separate it from, you know, an L or a 1. But if you're not using serifs, then you might just leave it Sionis. So I need and you can see how I fell off a little bit towards the end there, but that's all right. Now, I don't tend to work with these guidelines anymore because I don't really, for one, I'm mostly lettering totally digitally with the typeface. But also, when I'm hand lettering completely, I like it to be a little wibbly wobbly and have a little bit more character, which is part of why I letter totally freehand. And I find that when you're lettering totally with a digital typeface, then that frees you up to do a little bit of fun things with the hand lettering. Say if you have a song lyric, and so maybe hand lettering. Or again, if you have a sound effect like a boom or a door clicking or something like that, or maybe there's feet tapping, tap, tap, tap. So one thing you're going to notice me doing is I'm saying out loud what I'm lettering, which is really helpful for me personally. It keeps me focused and it keeps my mind from wandering and it keeps me from making stupid mistakes, like forgetting a letter or something like that. Let's see. What else? What else is good? Ooh. Hierarchy. And you can see how I'm following the base height, the X height, and the cap height while I'm just lettering freehand because it's in my brain because I've practiced it so much.
What?
Lettering hierarchy is kind of what it there's like a primary heading, a secondary heading, a text, and a tertiary heading, and then body text. So hierarchy. Annie Musk. And then maybe you'd have the text hierarchy allows us to differentiate one section of the text from another. Another thing that you're going to want to watch out for are widows. Widows are if you have one word hanging off the bottom of the text. So if you see how kind of awkward it looks when I have another hanging at the bottom, that's a widow. But if I bring it up back to the main area of the text, it looks, it gives us that nice block of text that we can, move around and do with what we want. Let's see, what else? So I'm looking at the careerfoundry.com beginner's typography. Think about personality. Let's see here. I've been mostly using this kind of tall, skinny, Bell Gothic influenced style of hand lettering, but we can go a number of ways with it. We can add serifs to have like a typewriter look. In style. And that gives us a kind of more classical or 19th century kind of look to the typography. As we saw earlier, we can go cursive, we can get big and fun with it. Let's see, what's another way to, so say we're gonna letter the word icy. Maybe the letters look like dripping blocks of ice. Here we have, let's stop sharing for a second. Here we have Everything is Flammable by Gabrielle Bell, designed by Tom Kaczynski of Uncivilized Books. And here you can see some examples of hand lettering based off a typeface with a little bit of flamey kind of disjointedness with the cap heights and a little bit of like fire, suggestion of fire there. And below it, we've got, below it and above it, we've got just standard, I don't know if that's Bell Gothic or another typeface, but we've got standard typefaces for Gabrielle Bell's author line and this quote from Patton Oswalt. And then at the bottom, we've got a totally hand lettered, that's hard to see, but a totally hand lettered little Uncivilized Books line at the bottom here. So as you can see here, this is a great example of hierarchy in the typeface. Big title, smaller, still important, artist name, We've got cohesion with the yellow and the spine, these little fiery bits around. We've got the white, we've got the yellow repeating with the uncivilized books, and the black and the blue in the background. So yeah, that's a great example of hierarchy. Here's a couple of other examples. What? Okay. Anders Dilson, Dogs in Water. Really fun, but really kind of somber scene here. Using the Drawn and Quarterly imprint name or press name above the title is a little bit unusual, and I think that helps it stand out. And we can see we've got a little bit of 3D text here, which is a lot of fun. And we've got title biggest, author name a little smaller, press name smallest. Here you've got Marble Season by Gilbert Hernandez of Love and Rockets. This is perfect for this book, which is a coming of age graphic memoir. It's the only one he's done, to my knowledge. And as you can maybe see, there's a little bit of not quite filled in areas in the typography because it's meant to be depicting like chalk on the actual wooden boards. And the name here at the bottom is also hand lettered, I believe. It's very hard to tell. Yeah, I believe it's hand lettered. Maybe not, but in any case, fits very well with the Marble Season typography. Here we've got Geneviève Castre's Susceptible from Drawn and Quarterly. Again, smaller artist name, larger, fun, kind of, or not fun because this isn't a fun book, but striking, I would say, title with a spot of color in the middle here. And Drawn and Quarterly listed at the bottom. And it really lets the design of the face shine through with this kind of framing. And again, here we have a little bit of cursive because there is cursive used throughout the book. And it's brilliantly done. And we've got this big block of text, Susceptible. And you can see again how the all capitals makes it this big solid block that works really well within the confines of the page. Here's a very different approach from Dominique Goblet, Pretending is Lying from New York Review of Comics. Here you've got the very unorthodox New York Review of Comics logo at the bottom here, and the very kind of messy personal use of her name in cursive, and Pretending is Lying with kind of a mix of all capitals and the lowercase I, which to me kind of adds kind of a question to what kind of adds an unsureness to me. Yeah, so that's and as you can see on the back, there is a lot of cursive used. The way it goes around the character's head, let's see, what other examples do I have here? Does anybody have any questions or comments or concerns?
What was the name of that last book again?
This is Pretending is Lying by Dominique Goblet.
Thank you.
Yes, it's a brilliant, sad, funny book about her strained relationship with her father and becoming a parent herself. And I think the spine even is so playful with the use of her and her father and her being in the middle of her name here. Let's look at all these spines. Spine is one of the most important parts of a book cover design because it tends to be what you see first in the bookstore. With comics, we of course have a lot of leeway as to how we present the spine. Anders Nelson, Dogs in Water. Genevieve Castre, Susceptible. Let's see if I can get that in better focus. What do you consider, is there a good beginner's class for clip art? Clip Studio Paint, I believe is what you're asking. Some say the font typography is very important because it's actually what the reader has to actually look at a lot. It's true. It's extremely important, the font and typography chosen, because it leads you through the whole project. You know, if you're using a lot of words, especially. What do you consider when selecting or creating a font for something you're working on? I would say tone and what ideas I want to get across, whether it's someone else's book or a book of my own. And I would say playfulness, but with an eye to a good design, a good graphic design, bold, communicative, unmistakable. And how do I approach a project? Let's see, that's a great question. Let me bring up a project that I did recently. Share a screen. Okay, so this is Abby Ribbit. This is a comic that I pitched and pitching in the process of pitching to publishers. As you can see, I hand lettered it. Wait, is this right? Did I hand letter this? Aha, that's right. This is the right version here. Stop share, share screen, photos. There we go. So as you can see, this story is a little bit playful, a little bit sad. So that's why I had this kind of dipping and turning typeface here with the yellow behind it to make it stand out. Here we have a little sound effect scree and a sign, donuts O, closed, Happy New Year's. Whoomp. And then we get to the main dialogue where she says, hey, goddamn Kurt Cobain wannabe. How's that song go? And it goes on from there. And here I have a little bit of cursive to indicate singing. It is now my duty to completely drain you, I mean breed you. And again, cursive for singing. This comic was all about memory. So to me, I tend to use the same typeface, the same Marion Churchland typeface for everything, but the style of balloons, which are kind of chunky and cartoony, and the hand lettering used for the laughter here. Goes along with this kind of super sketchy, painterly kind of look that I have for this
Comic.
Yes, I'm sorry. How do you decide to go all caps or regular sentence case for titles, word balloon, sound effects, etc.? I believe it comes down to feel for me. Lowercase has a kind of conversational style that works well for some comics, and all caps, especially when hand lettering, is kind of snappier. You read it a little faster. It's blockier, and it works in these, big chunks, as opposed to the dipping and up and down of the X heights and the caps of using lower and uppercase. Why do so many digital fonts lean to the left? Can you explain your question, Susan?
Sure, had to mute. So when I look at your Marianne Churchman font, if you were to draw a completely vertical line, the font tips to the left of that. And that seems to be really, really common in a lot of the digital fonts for sale, so to speak. And I just don't know. I don't know why. If I were going to lean my text a little bit, I'd lean it slightly to the right. But
well, that's interesting. I'm noticing, let me come back to my Clip Studio Paint. I'm noticing that I'm leaning slightly to the right in my typography, in my hand lettering. And, that's probably some kind of technical thing that I am not sure of.
it feels to me like it's aesthetic.
Yeah, it definitely feels that way. Well, put it this way. I don't know exactly what the difference is, but you can certainly tell there's a difference when you're writing slanting to the right. Ooh, that's a weird one. And you're writing slanting to the left. I think it has to do with the way your eye moves through the words. So
I like the first one better.
What's that?
I like the first one better.
Oh
You
yeah.
know, they both have good things about themselves.
Yeah. Yeah, I kind of lean towards the first one too, but it is interesting that this is leaning a little bit to the left. That is very interesting. I think it has to do with how your eye catches the letters as you're reading. And I think moving forward, or to the right rather, forward as we would think of it in English, is more for use for emphasis. So this looks more striking. This looks a little more relaxed.
Could it be the origin of the font? Like
the origin of the font?
Well, if it's from someone who produced the font and they have a cultural Asian background, like they might be, because it's actually opposite of ours.
That's very possible. I believe Marian Churchland read a lot of manga, so that's very possible that she was influenced by text moving in another direction, or from right to left.
When they write, like if you read something directly, it's kind of an opposite direction, and they actually read opposite. So I'm just wondering.
Yeah, it's very possible. It's very possible. Who knows why type designers do anything, lol. Yes, yeah, it's kind of it's very by feel. It's very improvisational to me. Meg Sum says, I am working on a piece with talking animals and I'm experimenting using different font for each species of animals, is suggesting an accent in their voices. In your experience, is that more distracting than helpful? I think that can be great, as long as maybe there's like a bit of consistency, but between the animal voices. I would say have fun with it and test it out, because and show it to other people and see what they think, because let's see, I'm gonna look for some Pogo comics. Let's see. Share screen. Pogo comics. So as you can see here, Pogo and his friends are talking in this, and that's interesting. This is leaning towards the right. So maybe it's a generational thing as well, as much as anything else. And as you can see, when they're singing, it becomes a totally different typeface. Let's see more examples of this. Here we have two examples of making big sounds, big vocal sounds, hounch, yowp, whip whip hoo. And they look totally different. So I think you can definitely maybe start with a base lettering style and try something a little different for each animal, maybe. That's just what I would suggest. Traditionally in Don Unger says, traditionally in many American comic books, italics, right-leaning fonts are used in narration captions. Churchill and other comic RAF fonts might lean a bit left because of it and increases the contrast between narration and dialogue. That's very possible. Yeah, and it is called, the typeface is called Journal. So it is meant to be maybe used in narration context. Let's see here. So we're coming up on an hour here. What other questions, thoughts, comments does anybody have? Feel free to speak them out or type them. How much interaction do I have with editors? It's been a while that I've worked on a comic with an editor, but oh, Dave Mazzucchelli's fonts comics have some great handling of fonts in relation to the characters. That's absolutely true. Yeah, Assyrios Polyp. I don't like the book at all, but I think it's beautifully designed, and is a great example of different lettering styles for different characters. I think that book is a little in love with itself, but I think it's a beautiful example of different lettering. How much interaction do I have with editors? A fair amount. Lettering is always something that gets talked about. I have been criticized for being too messy. So I have sometimes had to clean up my typefaces or replace them with digital lettering because I have gone off a little bit the rails at times with my scrappiness, which I think is the charm of a lot of my work, but it's also when it comes to lettering and communication, that can backfire sometimes if it's a little too scrappy, a little too messy. For especially main dialogue text and narration text. Let me think. Yeah. So editors tend to be pretty involved with hand lettering.
Hey, Annie, I got a couple of questions regarding thought bubbles and captions. Do you have any other, do you have considerations for both of those? And the other thing I was wondering is when you're doing, say, light colored font on a dark background, do you also have something that you kind of keep in your mind while you're working?
Oh, absolutely. And Edna asked, any recommendations for typography treatment sample types in our portfolios? I would say if you're trying to make a portfolio, and I'll come back to your question, Susan, if you're trying to make a portfolio and you're wondering, you want to include lettering, hand lettering or digital lettering, have a variety of titles, like title text, sound effects, and dialogue or narration, so that you can get a full breadth of the editor or the art director can get a full breadth of what they're looking at. let's go back to the page to answer your questions, Susan. Let's see here. So let's add a black space and make some white lettering. When you're doing light color or white on black lettering, you're going to want to make sure it's a little thicker, maybe, than your normal lettering, because it has to stand out and it has to be readable. And you want to keep in mind the fact that it's going to shrink. So that's fairly readable. And you want to make sure that there's enough contrast, visual contrast. So say you want to get a light blue. That works pretty well. But a darker blue on the light background, well, that actually looks kind of cool, but it's a very different look. It's much more subdued. It's much more pushed to the background. Susan, what were your other questions? I'm sorry.
Yeah, the other one was just when you're doing thought bubbles or captions, do you have different things that you think about when you're doing those lettering?
Yes. I would say if it's internal monologue, you're gonna want to think about the character's state of mind, how they're thinking about what they're thinking, metacognition, you know, all that. Sorry, Erla. Yeah, so let's give an example here. So say we're lettering the word sad. I'm not gonna say, say distinctly what looks sadder to me, but what looks sadder to me is this one because of the lowercase, the use of the lowercase. Here it's more, again, blocky, punchy, direct. Here the lowercase letters kind of give a quieter tone. So you might want to think about whether you're using caps or all cap or no caps. Caps are mix of caps and lowercase. When you're lettering internal monologue. Okay. Oh, thank you, Merlin. Let's see. Does anybody have any last questions or concerns or thoughts? Feel free to type or pipe up. Oh my God, thank you all so much. Okay, well, I guess if nobody has any last questions, then I guess we're done. Thank you all so much for coming. And I'll put again the link to my class Hardcore Storytelling, which is the book, which is the one about and I really suggest that you check it out. Again, Story by Robert McKee is a wonderful book. I find anyway, and I've read it many times, and I've gotten more and more out of it each time, and I'm very excited to teach the class. But yeah, thank you all so much for coming.
Thank you. It was great.
Okay, thank you all. Bye.
Thank you. Bye.